Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. Hello, everyone. Today's topic is identifying inflammation in your body. And obviously kind of relates to that Fierce Woman workbook that I mentioned you should bring or take notes on, or at least just have sort of that guideline on. So if you're new here, this is the Fierce Woman community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. Today's topic on inflammation, I'm pretty passionate about. I'm passionate about all of it. But I think if you can understand inflammation, learn how to control it, it will change your life. It will change your life, your longevity, whether you get diseases or not. I think inflammation is the root cause to so many things and processes of aging. Okay. I think about my own family. My dad has an autoimmune disease and my sister as well. And there's a lot of things in relation to, there's always that debate on genetics versus lifestyle. But I think back, in the younger days or my dad and what he did, I think there's a lot of things that could be prevented. So this is why I'm very passionate about it. On inflammation. Okay. Let's start at the ground level. I like to give some base, information, knowledge, and then we're going to build on it. Okay. We're going to start with what is inflammation, and then we're going to build into how do you know you have inflammation? And then we're going to build into testing for inflammation. And then we're going to build into things you can do to control inflammation. So there's a lot coming in today's live. So make sure you are listening, you're tuning in, you're taking notes. And if you feel like this can help someone else, please tag your friends on this, share this. Well, you can't share it out of the group. You just have to invite them to the group. So, tag someone on it if you feel like this will help someone. Okay. So the first thing is, what is inflammation in the body? So inflammation in the body is your body's natural response to injury, infections, harmful stimuli, and your body's immune system kicks in, right? And that's a good thing. Your immune system will kick in and it will come in to try to eliminate the harmful things and promote healing, right? So this is good because if you did not have this response, you might die. If you got sick from an infection, you got a cut or anything, because your immune response needs to come in to clear out all the dangerous things, okay? So the thing is, there's two types of inflammation. We have acute inflammation and we have chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation means it's short term, something just happened, you got injured, you fell on the ground. That is good. When your body sends those white blood cells and tries to attack the pathogens or infections, that is very good. We're glad for acute inflammation. What we don't want, and the topic of today's live, is chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation can persist and is a long-term health concern because it means your body goes through that inflammation response, but it keeps going and going and going and going. And this can persist for years or decades. And you might not know, but when you have and you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, and all these kinds of diseases, it's not because it suddenly happened. It was because of decades of actually not addressing your nutrition and your inflammation in your body. Okay. So this is huge. And this is why chronic inflammation, I know I sent out an email and a text message in regards to this, is actually called the silent killer, because you don't know what's happening in the back. It just slowly eats away, like the frog in the water, in the hot water, first it's cold and then he sits in it and then it slowly cooks the frog. That's the way I want you to think about inflammation. That's why I'm very passionate about it. It's why I built courses called the anti-inflammation courses, BioRevive systems, because I believe if you change people's understanding and addressing inflammation proactively, you will have a healthier life. Let's actually talk about chronic inflammation. Okay. So what is the process of inflammation in your body and how does that actually occur in your body? I'm going to talk about a few elements of it, of how this happens, okay? And then we're going to go into knowing how do you know you have inflammation, okay? So the first thing is when your body experiences inflammation, there is a trigger, okay? So in acute inflammation, it is initiated by injury, pathogen, allergens, you get sick. In a chronic inflammation, it is triggered by acute inflammation things that don't go away, like as in like you keep giving the same signal. Hint, the way you eat, as one example. You keep giving it the same signal, okay? It's not resolving that acute inflammation. Environmental toxins, well, here, poor diet, stress, and other things in your body that keeps that signal going all the time, okay? So there has to be a trigger that first happens in your body. When that trigger happens, you have the immune activation. So this immune activation, it detects this harmful stimuli and then it releases, well, the white blood cells, but the signaling kind of molecules are called cytokines and chemokines. So these signals get pushed through your body. Now, on an acute basis, that's fine. But if you imagine these signals are constantly being sent during a chronic situation, okay? When that happens, a couple things happen in your body, okay? And this will relate to later when I talk about hot flashes, all those symptoms that you experience, okay? There's going to be a vascular response in inflammation. In that vascular response, there's blood dilation, your vessels dilate, vasodilation to increase blood flow to the area. You have redness, you have heat, and your cells become more permeable. So more permeable. This is allowing the immune cells to actually travel in and kind of reach the site of injury and attack those things and all of that. Now, on a acute level, we're very happy for it. On a chronic level, this is not good that you're constantly, blood vessels are dilated, red, heat, and all of these things that your cells are becoming more permeable to immune cells entering, okay? But that's the second thing that happens, okay? The third thing is now there's recruitment of immune cells. So the white blood cells, like I said, will start to be released. They're attacking the area. So we're happy with acute inflammation, but during chronic inflammation, there's macrophages, lymphocytes, and other immune cells that dominate, and they start to damage the tissue. Okay, they damage things in your body, leading to inflammation, pain, maybe joint pain, maybe potentially organ damage, which is quite common as people age. Okay, so this is actually happening with chronic inflammation. The number 5 is there's a resolution and repair typically when this whole immune system responds, right? So there's like this arc that's supposed to happen. Okay. So when it's an acute inflammation, all this white blood cells goes in, attacks, try to get rid of it. And there's slowly as, it can get rid of that kind of signals and, infections, it will slowly die off in the sense of like the white blood cells will calm down and there's like healing that happens, regeneration of good cells and tissues, right? This is what's supposed to happen in acute inflammation. What happens in chronic inflammation is the resolution process fails. It cannot resolve itself. So this causes an arc and it cannot come down. And that's where most menopausal women live. When that resolution process fails, you stay in this zone, and this prolonged immune activation damages tissue and damages organ and causes a host of hormonal imbalances, which is why so many menopausal women kind of struggle in this area, like hormonal imbalance, not feeling great. Their body does not function as well as it used to. So that's just a little short snippet of like what happens in your body and why chronic inflammation becomes difficult. So like I said, chronic inflammation is harmful. So there's three things that it will cause in your body. Number 1, I mentioned this, it will damage tissues, continuous release of inflammatory molecules like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These things they actually test for when you have cancer, by the way. they will damage your healthy cells and tissues. Number two, when you have chronic inflammation, it will disrupt your healing process, meaning you can't heal as well. And on a maybe like an injury level, it's like you have an injury, it takes forever to heal. I know a couple people, I don't know if Kat Wilson's on here, but I know she's been struggling with injury for a while, fibrosis, scarring. But also, if it's difficult to heal, you have to remember, those of you who want to build muscle, it's more difficult to build muscle because you have inflammation. That is why I speak a lot about you must control inflammation if you want to build good muscle, okay? Because it disrupts your whole healing process, okay? And the third thing in your body is it causes a systemic effect where inflammatory molecules circulate all the time in your body. And this actually impacts all your organs, your heart, your brain, and your liver. At the very end of this live, I am going to talk about a lot of the diseases that come from inflammation. Okay. So stay tuned for that because it impacts your heart, your brain, your liver, and there's diseases that come out of that. If you don't have our Fierce Women workbook, make sure you put that gift below because you do want to kind of take notes on it or at least follow the structure of it, because every week when I go through sections of it, it's making you think about what I'm teaching in that section of the workbook. Okay. So if you don't have that Fierce Women workbook, make sure you put gift below. How do you know you have inflammation? So as I go through all of these symptoms, I want you to put it below if you experience these specific symptoms. Okay. I'm going to go through, I believe, about 10. So first of all, you may be having chronic inflammation if you have persistent fatigue. What is persistent fatigue is you're tired no matter what you do. You sleep a lot, but you're still tired. You try to, I don't know, drink coffee, you're still tired. Like you try to do all these things, but you're still tired. You're just persistently fatigued. And you just know it. Your body feels it. You're just like, I'm so tired. I don't know why. That's very different than Clarice missing a night of sleep, because sometimes Clarice does, because I just do a lot of stuff. And I'm really tired and I need to go to sleep and then I feel better after I wake up. That's not persistent fatigue. Persistent fatigue, like no matter what you do, you feel so tired. Okay. So that's one sign of chronic inflammation. Number two, unexplained weight changes. Okay. Unexplained weight changes is like, why is it all of a sudden you're like gaining a lot of weight or losing a lot of weight? And it's not really making sense. And I was thinking about one of my previous clients, Claudia, I believe, and she just like lost from, I think she was 135 or 140 before, and she, for her height, was actually healthy. But all of a sudden within 2-3 months, she like lost and she was at like 125. And she's like, I don't want this. Like she likes curves. She likes muscles. She's like, how come I lost weight so fast? You know? And there's a lot of things. And she was actually close to prediabetes and everything, but that is unexplained weight loss or weight gain. Okay. So again, if you're identifying with these things, put it below. These are signs and symptoms you need to be aware. Are you potentially struggling with inflammation? Okay. Number 3 is joint pain and stiffness. So if you constantly are stiff or chronic, like pain in your joints without injury, like obviously if you have an injury, that's a little bit different. But if you are always stiff and just like there's pain in your joint, very, very big sign you have inflammation. In fact, Jennifer used to do my program and she used to have a lot of joint pain. And after taking away all that inflammation, she really didn't have any joint pain anymore, which is amazing because yeah, like it was like in her fingers and everything. So it was really cool to hear that. Number 4, very common. And that's why I love you're doing my 4-day anti-bloat challenge here, is digestive issues. Digestive issues include bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, and potentially just like feeling like your stomach's inflamed. Okay. This I would say is like huge. You know, if I do this, sometimes there's like things that come through my screen, but this is huge because it's like, I think majority of women I talk to have digestive issues. They usually are bloated, there's a lot of gas, or they can't go to the bathroom, they're constipated. This is a big sign of inflammation potentially in your system and in your gut, okay? And women are about, I believe, 15 to 20% more likely to have gut digestive issues than men. And our colon is about 10 centimeters longer than men. And so we have a lot more things that get stuck and a lot more, twists and turns. And so there's a lot of things that can happen in that gut system. Okay. My grandma died of colon cancer. And it's quite common in women that if you don't eat healthy, you will have colon problems. And yes, all of you probably know you need to get colonoscopy after a certain age, but digestive issue is your first sign. I also have to share a story with you. So one of my other clients, Frances, she did my transformation program and she used to be diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. She even went to see a gastroenterologist and they couldn't figure out, she couldn't eat vegetables. She would go to the bathroom within 30 minutes. She was just so frustrated. Like she felt like she couldn't eat. Everything was causing her digestive issues. And she told me, she's like, I'm afraid to eat anything now because, just all this problems. I can't leave the house. And she started my transformation program. And within 3 weeks, she was like, I don't have problems with my gut anymore. Like I can eat vegetables. I can eat stuff. I'm like, yes, because here's the thing. I told her, I said, the thing is not that you couldn't eat vegetables. The thing was you were eating too much inflammatory things causing the situation in your gut. She was just dumbfounded. She's like, I can't believe that. Like I saw so many doctors and it was to control inflammation in her gut, right? That's why I say digestive issue is a huge one. Number 5 is skin problems. Is if you have acne, eczema, psoriasis, or any kind of redness in your skin, those could indicate inflammation just because of the vascular responses due to, those immune cells. So if you have skin problems, I know quite a few people here have told me that they have like some sort of psoriasis or skin condition that is very signaling of inflammation. Number 6, brain fog. So if you have difficulty concentrating, memory issues, feeling mentally cloudy, or just sometimes just like you can't think clearly, that is also a huge sign of inflammation in your system. And brain fog relates a lot to your gut axis, which I'll talk a little bit later. But again, what you eat, the way what you put in your body really has a big axis in the clarity of your brain and the neurotransmitters. Okay. So if you have brain fog, put it below. Number 7 sign of inflammation is frequent infections or slow healing. If you get sick a lot, you have different infections, I would probably start to consider what's going on with your immune system with inflammation. I have known clients that have told me like, I constantly get sick and it just gets sick and I don't know why. I get better, then I get sick, then this happens and this happens. So that's another one. Number 8 is allergies or asthma. If you used to not have certain allergies and you start having certain allergies, that's a pretty good sign that something is happening with your immune system. And yes, your body does change with age on what it becomes more sensitive to, but like allergy-like symptoms or like I never used to have problems when I ate this, now I have problems with this, is a good sign of potential inflammation. Number 9 is mood swings and depression. So if you have a lot of mood swings, up and down, sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't, you have anxiety, depression, this is quite common in menopausal women. Actually, menopausal women struggle a lot with mood and depressive kind of tendencies. And this has to do with inflammation in the system. Okay, again, put it below if you feel like this is you. Okay, and number 10 is swelling or puffiness. Now, swelling, puffiness, we all kind of know this, and sometimes you're quite aware. My sister has, I told you, some autoimmune things and her knee was swelling. She sent me a picture of her knee and just out of nowhere, why is it swelling? Puffiness, fluid retention. But one thing I will say is because sometimes with swelling and puffiness, the scary thing is you've lived with it so long that you don't even really know. And why I say this is when I coach a lot of my clients that have brought down inflammation in their body in 2-3 weeks at the beginning of the program, and they look like Lauren Cook. If you're on this or you rewatch this, I showed her week 0 picture and week 4 picture. It blew her mind. She could not believe her body changed so much in 4 weeks because we controlled the swelling and puffiness. And I don't know if she even realized how puffy she is. I don't think a lot of people realize because you just live in your body, like how puffy your face is, how puffy your neck is with inflammation. Medically test for inflammation. So there's a number of tests that I'm going to go through. So C-reactive protein, CRP, that is what Hope Metwa was being tested on. So a normal person has about 8. She was at 60. And through the program, we dropped her down to 25, right? So you being tested of how much C-reactive protein is in your body will show the inflammation markers and all of that. And C-reactive protein is very connected to cardiovascular risk, okay? You can also get tested with ESR, which is erythrocyte sedimentation. This tests how fast red blood cells go to the bottom of the tube, and how fast it settles indicates inflammation. If it settles faster, it means you have a higher inflammation in your body. You can get tested for obviously white blood cells. You can be tested for fasting insulin and glucose levels. That's quite common. And if you have elevated glucose levels, usually means high inflammation. You can get tested for cytokine levels. And so cytokine levels in your body, just so you guys know, is they're testing for interleukin 6 and TNF alpha to see how much of that is in your system. Okay. And so why I want you to understand this is, yes, you can have your doctor go and get these tests. But one thing I always say is sometimes they don't always test for the right thing. So know what you want to test for. The better knowledgeable you are, the better you can ask for the right test. Okay. Homocysteine levels as well is another one that they use to test. Again, if there's high levels of homocysteine, it means you have high inflammation linked to cardiovascular. They can test your liver and kidney functions as well, because those organs and their functions will indicate whether you have inflammation. Okay. So that's a little bit technical. Like I said, maybe I'll have more resources coming on that, because I have another part here that's going to talk about numbers, and that in this live, it would be hard for you guys to jot down that. So I just want you to know there's different tests that medically you can conduct for yourself. Now we're going to move into the next part. So the root causes of chronic low-grade inflammation. We're going to get to some of the causes, okay? We're going to talk about a few root causes of chronic inflammation. So the first thing is poor diet or eating, okay? You're not surprised with it. So the thing is, if you eat high processed foods, refined sugars, trans fat, alcohol, these all trigger inflammatory responses, okay? As well, last week, I talked about macronutrients, right? I talked about healthy fats. And one of the key factors in inflammation is when you imbalance your fats. I talked about this, your fat macros. If you have a big imbalance of your omega-6s to your 3s, very common in Western diets. Probably not Japan. Japan is amazing. Their inflammation, they are actually one of the best society for anti-inflammation because they have very good balance of their fat macros. So Western diets, though, the way Canadians, United States, or, some of these countries, we have very high ratios of omega-6s to 3s, which causes high inflammation. So if you don't really understand that part, this is why I say you need to know your macros and you need to know how to control your inflammation. So you need to, when we talk about poor diet, you need to be aware, okay? What kinds of food am I eating? Is it like refined sugar? Does it have trans fat? Does it have inflammatory markers? What kinds of omega-3s or 6s are in there? We want a little bit more omega-3s, okay, versus omega-6s, okay? So if you are, like for you believe like you need to learn more about inflammation markers or macros, like in terms of balance of your fat macros and things like that, I want you to put inflammation markers or macros below. Again, there's another part that I'll go into more detail in this live later on, but first is poor diet, okay? If you think you need to improve your diet, you could put diet, you could put inflammation marker, you could put macros below, because those are aspects you need to learn more on to control inflammation. Number 2, root cause of low-grade inflammation is insulin resistance. Okay, this is a really big topic. In fact, I could do a whole entire live on just insulin resistance, okay? So let's talk about insulin resistance, okay? Insulin resistance usually occurs from excessive consumption of refined sugar and carbs, okay? And what happens is that your body cannot respond properly to the insulin hormone. Insulin helps your cells open the gates to sugar and carbs entering those cells. When it cannot respond properly, that means that sugar stays longer in your bloodstream and your body has to decide what to do with this imbalance. High levels of blood sugar in your body is not good. Okay. And there's going to be a number of symptoms you'll experience about if in insulin resistance. Like you'll kind of like, it'll give you a hint. Are you insulin resistant? Okay. Like I said, I could do a whole live on this, but I'm not. So I'm just going to name off a few things that will tell you might be insulin resistant. Okay. You feel really tired after eating. If you feel really tired after eating, it means you're not uptaking nutrients properly. You have a lot of weight gain around your abdomen. Okay. Abdominal fat is related quite a lot to insulin resistance. Okay. Difficulty losing weight and sugar cravings. Okay. So one of my calls I had yesterday, she talked about, I don't understand. I crave sugar all the time. And I said, there's something happening with the way you eat and potentially with the belly fat that she has. I said there could be insulin resistance. So those are the 4 things for now without getting into it more. How many of you feel like you get really tired after eating? You have weight gain around abdomen, difficulty losing weight, and potentially sugar cravings. If you do, put it below that you have one of these, and that may indicate you have insulin resistance. Okay. So insulin resistance is quite dangerous because what's the next step from that? Does anyone know? Insulin resistance will lead to type 2 diabetes. Yeah. So it's quite dangerous. In the small realm of it, it's not going to kill you right away. But remember, I talked about the silent killer. Slowly, it goes towards type 2 diabetes, damaging your pancreas, damaging your blood vessels. Why do I say that? Because when sugar remains in your bloodstream, that damages your blood vessels, pushes cortisol level high, puts fat onto your abdomen, all the stuff that you don't want coming. So identify for yourself. If you believe potentially you have insulin resistance, put insulin resistance below because you should get that actually fixed before it progresses to type 2 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, it actually means that your pancreas and some of those production cells for, insulin stops producing completely. So you can reverse prediabetes, you can reverse insulin resistance. When you get to type 2 diabetes, it's much harder to reverse, or you might not be able to reverse it. It's why I say, if you have this, put it below and you need to get help with bringing that insulin resistance down for pre-diabetic conditions. Okay. So the next thing here is what kinds of tests can you do to better understand do you have insulin resistance? Like I said, I might develop a resource on this because I think the numbers are going to throw you guys all off. But I'll go through it really quickly on like the types of tests, and in terms of specific values, I think I'll save it for one of the resources. Okay. So medical tests that you can test for insulin resistance is fasting insulin levels. There's a specific benchmark number you need to know for the fasting insulin level, and I will produce a resource from this. Fasting blood glucose. So how much should your fasting blood glucose level be? And for this one, I'll just say your normal should be less than 100 milligram per deciliter. But if you are pre-diabetic, it means your fasting blood glucose level will be between 100 to 120. And if you are 126 and above in milligrams per deciliters, when you do a blood glucose test, then you're diabetic. Okay. So this is just as an idea that there's a lot of numbers behind this. But yes, fasting blood glucose is important to test. Your hemoglobin A1C levels are important to test. Again, I won't go into those numbers. Your oral glucose tolerance level, so how much blood sugar level kind of is in that like glucose drink that you drink in the test. Homeostatic model assessment of insulin. It's another kind of like fasting glucose test. Triglyceride test as well to HDL. So how much triglyceride to the good cholesterol in your body. Test some of this. C-peptide test as well. So Again, like I know that's kind of complicated and you guys are probably not going to write that down. Just wanted you to know medically you can get tested for insulin resistance and you can actually get this figured out. Okay. So I talked about this, or these are the reasons you have what causes chronic inflammation in your body. So I'm going to come back to this theme. Okay. So coming back to why you have chronic inflammation is one, poor diet, like we talked about. Okay. Possibility of insulin resistance. Number 3 is gut health issues. So you might become and have that inflammation in your body from dysbiosis, imbalances in your gut, and potentially leaky gut syndrome. So if you have imbalance in your gut and leaky gut syndrome, it means that your gut lining becomes more permeable. And so things can go through the intestinal villi. That actually will let a lot of molecules pass through and it will go into your bloodstream. And this causes huge systemic inflammation in your body. So this is why leaky gut syndrome is very dangerous. So chronic inflammation can come from gut health issues. It can come from being obese or having a lot of fat on your body. So again, whatever I'm saying here, if you're like, oh, I struggle with this, put what you struggle with. Okay. So if you have a lot of fat on your body or obesity, the fat cells themselves produce inflammatory markers. Okay. So that's the hard part, is if you struggle with more fat, you are struggling with potentially more inflammation in your body, especially belly fat. Belly fat is the most inflammatory type of molecules. They specifically release inflammatory cytokines. And hormonal imbalance is another cause of chronic inflammation. So hormonal imbalance comes largely due to estrogen dropping during menopause, perimenopause, or postmenopause, where you have barely any estrogen. Okay. When estrogen drops off, then inflammation starts to rise. Basically, it's like this. Your estrogen here, inflammation's here, estrogen controls inflammation. And as the years go on, estrogen drops, inflammation rises. So this is why if you are in menopause, perimenopause, or postmenopause, almost guarantee you have inflammation in your body. Almost guarantee, right? So abdominal fat, I see abdominal fat from all of you, okay? So that causes inflammation. Another thing that causes inflammation is chronic stress. So if you are chronically stressed, high cortisol levels really suppress your immune system and regulatory pathways. So chronic stress keeps pumping all those like inflammatory responses, trigger molecules, all those things I talked about. And that keeps your system remember I talked about it, a regular response should go up, back down. But in chronic inflammation, it goes up and it stays here. And that's what chronic stress does, is it keeps your cortisol super, super high. So by nature of being overweight, having fat is inflammatory. Not to mention, so you have overweight, you're menopausal, your estrogen has dropped, you're more likely to be insulin resistant. So you can see all the things I'm sharing with you stacks against you as a menopausal woman or perimenopause. All the ladies who are like, I'm not in menopause yet. Let me tell you something. Whatever you do, in fact, some of these studies that they said it starts in your teenage years, will affect how you age up to 50, 60 years old. Now, we cannot go back to our 20s, but if you are in your 40s or 39, 40, 41, 42, and you're like, I'm not in menopause yet, Clarice, let me tell you, you need to take care of it now, because everything that's stacking against you is only going to get worse if you don't control all of these things. So chronic stress is big, as well as another chronic inflammation factor is sedentary lifestyle. So not moving, lacking physical activity, sitting a lot, watching TV, desk jobs, all contribute to inflammation. Another thing that contributes to inflammation is toxins and environmental factors. Okay. So pollutions, chemicals, endocrine disruptors all cause chemical overload into your system. Now, today I'm not going to get into endocrine disruptors, but like I said, with the new course I developed a list that is inflammatory markers and endocrine disruptors and gut imbalancers, if you want to call it, because endocrine disruptors is not necessarily just inflammation, but it's how it disrupts your immune response. And a lot of these chemicals in things do disrupt your body. A very simple one that many people know, and I know it's already so wide known that like I think most people are conscious of it, is the plastics, right? The plastics and plastic containers and things like that, making sure it's BPA free. Because, you know, if it is BPA, it is an endocrine disruptor. There's a lot of different things that you have to be aware of to be careful, because you could be using things that you're not aware of that causes endocrine disruptors, right? So toxins, environmental factors cause inflammation. And number 9, sleep disturbances, meaning you don't sleep well. You have disrupted circadian rhythms, causes inflammation. Okay. So those are all the factors that can cause inflammation in your body. So let me ask you, I'm going to repeat all the factors that can cause you to have inflammation in your body. And if you haven't shared, tell me and write it down for yourself. What of these factors is causing you inflammation? Okay. So number 1, you have poor diet. You don't know how to eat, or that you don't understand macros or inflammation markers, etc. Insulin resistance. You struggle with potential insulin resistance. Number 3, you have gut health issues, you know, like imbalances in your gut, leaky gut syndrome, all of that. Obesity and fatty tissues, or a lot of fat on your body. Number 5, hormonal imbalances. Number 6, chronic stress in your life. Number 7, sedentary lifestyles. Number 8, toxins and pollutants in your environment. And number 9, sleep disturbances. Okay. So which one of these do you feel like potentially you might struggle with that causes inflammation? So identify that for yourself and put it below. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about as you guys come in with your responses is, how does this impact menopausal women health? Like, how does inflammation affect you as a perimenopause woman, a menopausal woman, or a post-menopause woman? Okay, the impact of menopausal women's health for inflammation. Okay, so the first thing is inflammation in regards to menopausal women will cause weight loss resistance. Okay, so when there is inflammation in the body, it really disrupts insulin sensitivity. Now, I talked about this above. If insulin cannot be sensitive, or it's resistant, okay, then more fat storage is going to come. More fat is going to be stored. Okay. So inflammation, just think about it this way. If you have inflammation in your body, more fat storage. So if you want less fat storage, you need to control inflammation down. Okay. And also with weight loss resistance, inflammation really hinders leptin signaling. Leptin is the hunger and fullness hormone. Okay. So ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Leptin is the fullness hormone. So it signals when you're full. When you have inflammation, you actually disrupt the leptin signal. So you actually don't know when you're hungry, when you're full. So all your signals are all over the place. And so it's very difficult to regulate your appetite, leading to more fat storage. Okay. So that's one of the, reasons why inflammation will make it difficult for you to lose weight. Number 2 is hormonal imbalance causes, so if you have inflammation as a menopausal woman, okay, it will cause a host of hormone problems in your body. Okay. So like I said, estrogen is an inflammatory response modulator. It helps control inflammation. But as you go into menopause, estrogen drops off, right? And this causes chronic inflammation to start to rise. And this inflammation affects your thyroid. Now, I saw somebody said that they have Hashimoto's, thyroid, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. All this inflammation will affect your thyroid, and your thyroid is the key to your metabolism. Okay. So a lot of people will say, I don't know why, as I get older, it's like I look at something and then I gain weight. I've heard that many times. I look at something and I get heavier from looking at the pizza. And it's like, I know that it's kind of jokingly, but it's kind of half true, right? Because you have a slowed down metabolism caused by drop in estrogen, caused by inflammation rising. And that inflammation then affects your thyroid hormones. And then thyroids affect your cortisol response, which is the stress hormone for depositing belly fat. And then the cortisol affects your insulin response as well. So it's one big highway pathway interconnection. So difficulty losing weight is very common, says Oshone. Yeah, it's very common for menopausal women. That's why I kind of brought this up. And if you know that your hormones are out of whack, I want you to kind of consider this. Why is this happening? Why? So you have estrogen to worry about. You need to think about thyroid. You need to think about cortisol, and you need to think about insulin. So if you want to learn better how to balance your hormones, put hormones below, because there's a lot of interconnectedness to all these hormones and the pathways that they take, right? So put hormones below if you feel like you need to better learn how to balance hormones, okay? The next thing on how it affects you as a menopausal woman in terms of inflammation is muscle loss and recovery. So I mentioned this earlier that chronic inflammation contributes to muscle loss. I did a live on this a long time ago called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia means the age-related muscle loss. And this happens to almost everyone. And no matter what you do, it's happening to your body, but you can slow it down. Okay. So I see lots of hormones come in and we will reach out to you. Okay. So in terms of the muscle loss, you will lose muscle very fast if you have high inflammation, and recovery is very difficult. As I mentioned earlier, it affects the healing process. So let me tell you, I get lots and lots of women, one of two camps. I mean, they're kind of connected. I have lots of fat. I need to lose belly fat. Other camp, I don't have so much fat, but I can't build muscle. And then some says both. Clarice says both. Which one are you? Are you, I can't lose fat. I can't lose belly fat. Or I can't build muscle, Clarice. I can't build muscle. Both are heavily connected to the inflammation in your body. So the thing is, you have to, if you want to build muscle and not lose muscle quickly and recover faster to build the muscle, we need to control inflammation. Okay. Number 4 effects on menopausal women is increased risk of chronic conditions. So inflammation is a precursor. I talked about this earlier. Inflammation is a precursor to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and osteoporosis. These are very key concerns for menopausal women and very common. Okay. Type 2 diabetes, people with heart conditions, and osteoporosis, all it shows inflammation in your body. The muscle loss is horrible. Yeah, Darlene, actually you lose very, very fast. There's one thing I tell a lot of my clients is like, yeah, you have to weight train, but it's beyond that. It's, do you understand how to eat and control your hormone levels? So it's beyond just going to the gym. It's beyond just walking or running. There's a lot more behind, your health as a menopausal woman. I was listening to this doctor speak about different things, and she was saying that as a menopausal woman, you are a walking health risk. And I was like, wow, that's a strong statement, but I guess it's true. You're a walking health risk because of all the things that is happening in your body that men don't experience. And that is why one thing I always say, a lot of women I coach say, oh, let me talk to my husband about this and this. And I always say, yes, I understand, but I'm going to tell you, your husband usually, unless they're a doctor or a scientist in this field, will not understand what you're going through. So if you tell them I need to do a program, it's so important to me. They're like, why don't you just go to the gym and eat less? Like, I have men that say that. I hear doctors say it, and it's very dismissive. Right? It's very dismissive. They don't understand that the level of complexity as a menopausal woman of what you need to deal with is so much. And you need to go, no, I need to take care of this because you don't have these problems that I do. Okay. So there's the increased risk of chronic conditions. That was number 4. And then number 5, yeah, that's so sad, Dana. It's very true. And I see it in my industry because I talk to women all the time. Number 5 is gut-brain axis and mental health. Okay. So gut-brain axis and mental health is another symptom you have to be very careful of as a menopausal woman. So inflammation really impacts your gut-brain axis. The inflammation in your body as a menopausal woman will contribute to mood disorders, like I said earlier, such as anxiety and depression. And so if you are a menopausal and you struggle with big mood swings, I talked about this, you are up and down all over the place. Sometimes you're like this, sometimes you're like this. That is, again, something that is quite common and showing that you may be experiencing a lot of inflammation. So if you want to stabilize your mood swings, maybe your hot flashes, a lot of these types of like symptoms, it's really important you deal with inflammation in your body. So those are some of the things that as a menopausal woman, you're going to experience with inflammation. Okay. So let's talk about strategies now. Let's dive into strategies and what do you need to do to combat chronic inflammation. Okay. In the Fierce Woman workbook, I asked you what are like inflammatory markers that you know or in your food. When you look at it, do you know what inflames your body? And that workbook was meant to make you think about what do you know and what do you don't know and why are you where you are right now. One of the things I like to teach my women is that awareness is the first step to change. And number two, honesty is the second step to change. You need to be aware of what causes your inflammation. And number two, you need to be honest with yourself why you are where you are. If you are overweight, if you have a lot of belly fat, if you're 20, 30 pounds overweight, if you have all these types of symptoms, you need to be honest with yourself. That's why I develop that workbook for you to write in and audit yourself. Okay. So let's come back to this because it's going to relate to the workbook. Number one strategy for addressing chronic inflammation in menopausal women is you need to have an anti-inflammatory nutrition. You need to know how to eat to bring down that inflammation. And yes, every doctor will say, every YouTube video you Google will say, eat whole foods, lots of vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats. Not surprising. But I'm going to go into a couple other things here in a second. Okay. Beyond this basic recommendation, what a lot of women don't really pay attention to is the labels, what's in their food, your Starbucks coffee, your blah, 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 this health food product you just bought. And I know I talked about this last week, but it is very common. You're supposed to eat whole foods. I don't know anybody who would disagree with me. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows they should eat more vegetables. But the problem is when people don't know how to understand what is in those labels of food. So like not understanding inflammatory markers, not understanding what disrupts your gut, not understanding what causes endocrine disruptors in your body. And not everybody has to deal with things like this, but there's things like oxalates and things like different things that you have to start to think about that could cause, but not everybody's sensitive to oxalates. So it's like, wait, like there's a lot of things you need to care about beyond just the basics if you want to really learn how to bring down potential inflammation, right? I talked about this earlier. When you adopt an anti-inflammation food nutrition protocol, you have to understand omega-3s and the right fat ratios and where do you get your omega-6s and how not to have too much omega-6s in your food. Omega-6s occur in a lot of processed foods, but also in a lot of the harmful oils that I'm not a fan of. So it's learning what those things can do to your body, right? If you are someone who really wants to learn how to bring down that inflammation in your body, learn about anti-inflammation nutrition, then I want you to put anti-inflammation below, okay? Because this would indicate a whole host of things. Like I said, there is that list I developed that has inflammation markers, gut disruptors, and endocrine disruptors, and then all those chemicals, as well as the alternatives of what you have for all the things that you can eat instead of that, of those things. Okay, so the next step or the next strategy to help you bring down chronic inflammation is supporting your gut health. So supporting your gut health means that you need to pay attention to prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are bacteria that feeds the bacteria in your colon, like healthy foods. for it. So prebiotic foods could be like garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, some of these compounds, vegetables, that type of thing. And you need also probiotic foods, right? So probiotic is like the good bacteria in your colon to digest food. Now, there's a lot of things you can potentially have, like they always say, right? There's like kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, all of that type of stuff. But one thing, again, I say this a lot is be cautious of when you buy a lot of probiotic type foods because there's a lot of things in it that could have inflammatory markers in it that kind of is paired with that probiotic. A good example would be like, I think of that synergy, synergy drink. It's like if you go as a kombucha and it's a probiotic drink with a lot of sugar in it. So to me, it doesn't make sense. Sure, it tastes better, but like, why are you drinking sugar? I think it's, if I looked on it, it's 28 grams of sugar on a probiotic drink, right? So I want you guys to be careful. You have to understand like how to read these labels. Yes, you need prebiotics. Yes, you need probiotic, but we got to be careful about some of the things that we choose for ourselves. And you have to limit processed foods, sugar to protect your gut health. And again, like I said, focus on more whole foods choices. Now, when it comes to prebiotic and probiotic things, there's sort of like protocols that I like to have people follow in their gut health regime. Those of you in my BioRevive system and the ones who actually do it well and track, okay? So nicely calling out the people who aren't tracking in the BioRevive system, okay? There's a reason why you need to track what I ask you to track in BioRevive system. There's very specific ways of how I want you to protect your gut health and the way I want you to eat to make sure that gut stays as healthy as possible, okay? So if you want to learn more how to support your gut health, have better like microbiome balance, prebiotics, probiotics, that type of thing, I want you to put gut health below because obviously we have a few, courses and things, resources in regards to that. So gut health is what you want to put below. Debbie's funny. Oh, Debbie's been in my program for so long. I know she loves me. She's like, you call us out, hello, get out of my head, Clarice. I like to call out my clients on this live very nicely, because I can develop the best program for you. But if you don't do it and you don't follow it, that's all I can say, right? You can wrap up that sentence for me. Next strategy is stress management. So you need to manage your stress. Okay. This is, of course, we know it's so important. So practice mindful practices, meditation, yoga. One of the entrepreneurial people that kind of teaches within our other business talks a lot about diaphragmatic breathing, learning to breathe from your diaphragm. You have to find strategies to lower cortisol. And with stress management, not only is those mindful practices really important, but you also need to pay attention to lifestyle habits. So things like your water, like your sleep, like how long you sit for, like all those types of things are all very, very important because they contribute to your chronic stress level. And of course, the last thing is mindset. Okay. I think this one's really important. So I want to touch on this a little bit more. Mindset is the key factor that affects most women on whether they can stick long term to a health program or not, and whether their body is going to function well or not. So when I say mindset, it means how much anxiety, stress do you hold here? How much do you worry? How much do you get angry or upset about something you cannot control? Something I was saying to one of my clients is, it was in a consult. I said, the only two things you can control in your life is your actions and your attitude. You cannot control people. You cannot control other things that are happening around you. So you have to learn to let that go. And this is something that's why I'm a holistic health coach, because I really focus and believe those things are important. More often than not, a lot of my clients actually understand healthy eating. They actually understand proper weight training, but this is the biggest enemy and culprit. How many of you agree? I want all of you listening right now to tell me how many of you agree that mindset is a big problem for yourself. And how you will know, and put mindset below if you struggle with this, how you will know is if you always fall off. If you always fall off, if you're always inconsistent, if you constantly struggle up and down, you have a problem with your mindset, which is okay to be aware. Awareness, number one, honesty, number two. Awareness, honesty, right? I have many clients who've been with me for 3 years, right? Like Joanne, like Debbie, like a whole bunch of you who have been with me a long time. For my new clients, I don't expect you to know all about macros yet. That's why you're with me, you're learning. I don't expect you to know all about information. But my clients that's been with me for 2-3 years, I know you know a lot, but it's here that keeps stopping you. It's mindset right here. And I will say one thing. One of the biggest mindset traps for people is, okay, I'll just work on my mindset and just figure it out on my own, and not seeking more guidance and help on mindset. And for some reason, people think they need coaching in nutrition and workouts, but they never think about, wait a second, I might need some coaching on my mindset. I need coaching on my mindset. I'm going to give you a great example. She's not on here right now, but I love her and she is doing so well. I'm so proud of her. Andrea McLaren, I know you're going to listen to this. She did my program a long time ago. Overall did pretty well, but she's always had kind of this like obsession with food and weight and stepping on weight scales and stuff like that. And she came back the second round 3 years later to me and she said, Clarice, I need to get a hold of my mindset on food and nutrition. I am obsessive. Can't enjoy myself. I'm worried about every little thing. I can't. She just like was so stressed about food and everything, like to a unhealthy level, right? And we worked through her program. Her entire program that we are doing right now is on mindset. And I know that Andrea, and she like made such huge leaps in her mindset and the way she looks at food. And like, she actually says, I finally have freedom. Imagine you finally have freedom on the way you live your life and on the way you eat your food. I like her specific program, like that is a very specialized program individual to her. I think more women should do. I told her that I will do a testimonial or something, or maybe a live on this one day, but it's exactly on the mindset of food. And a lot of people don't even realize it's your mindset on food that's the problem. Your mindset, the way you look at it, the way you look at weight gain, the way you look at weight loss, that is the problem. Okay. I told you I would dive a little bit into this because I think people don't pay attention to mindset enough. That's why there's people specialized in mindset development, psychologists, psychotherapists, because it's so important and it can change everything in your life. The moment you change your mindset is the moment you probably can start to lose weight. Like Andrea. Andrea's belly fat and everything always fluctuated. And now consistent. And it's because of her mindset. Her belly fat is like less bloating only because of mindset. Crazy. I just think she's such a great example. The next strategy is menopausal training protocol. Okay, I talk a lot about this. So I'm going to be specific about this. Is menopausal training protocol is the protocol I name for the way I want menopausal women to train their fitness and health in kind of weight training exercise. Okay, so menopausal training protocol is if you want to bring down inflammation in your body properly and know how to balance the hormones properly, you have to have a right breakdown and percentages of how you work out, which includes elements of resistance training, elements of cardio, elements of HIIT training, as well as mobility and flexibility work. Okay. So those elements, there is a breakdown in how you need to work out to create the best hormonal balance. So the best way I like to explain to people often in my consults is that if you break down food as protein, carbs, and fat, protein, carbs, and fat have certain percentages, protein this percentage, carbs this percentage, fat this percentage, there is certain percentage breakdown for percentage of resistance training, percentage of cardio, percentage of HIIT training, and percentage of mobility, flexibility work. So that I like to train my clients this way because of the cortisol situation. As a menopausal woman, your biggest fight will be controlling cortisol, controlling inflammation. When you train, you have to ask yourself, is your training supporting your cortisol level or not supporting your cortisol level? Is your training supporting bringing down inflammation in your body or not supporting the inflammation in your body? If you don't know, or you're like, I don't know, maybe my training is causing more cortisol harm or inflammation harm than I want, then I want you to put menopausal training protocol, or you could put MTP, menopausal training protocol, MTP, because that's something that I do really believe strongly in because of how I see a lot of women work out these days and does not support their hormone levels. Okay, MTP. Put it below if you want more guidance on that. The next strategy is optimizing sleep. You need to prioritize 7 to 9 hours of restorative sleep and establish a consistent bedtime routine. Now, there's different research on like you could sleep less. Ultimately, it's how many REM cycles you get into. And there is like little hacks and things like that, not today's live, but you can have potentially like you can have closer REMs. Okay. It's a little bit scientific. Today's live is not about that, but you could get away with less. But in general, just the generality of it is 7 to 9 hours. But if you can hack your sleep pattern, you could actually sleep less. Obviously, these are from people who are like high performers, high achievers, like Clarice, who doesn't like sleep. So I'm like, how do I hack my sleep? How do I sleep less and get more bang out of my buck? So I'll tell you a little bit funny story. You guys could just laugh at me. People always ask, what do you hope is a superpower if you could have one superpower? And I said, it is the superpower of not having to sleep. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah. So like, I hope one day there's like a charger. I could put myself up against a wall and I could charge myself and I don't need to sleep. But that's just to make you guys laugh. Okay. I just wanted to put some humor there, but yes, you do need sleep. Okay. You need restorative sleep and you need to make sure that is there to control inflammation. The next strategy is detoxification support. So you need to learn how to detoxify your system, drink plenty of water, understand how to support your liver function, which I talk about in my BioRevive system, and avoid unnecessary toxins. Okay. Detoxification is kind of like why, for example, you're doing this 4-day anti-bloat challenge. It is really supporting kind of restoring some gut balance, some detoxification things. Detoxification and regular detoxification is important to your body. Interestingly, your body naturally detoxifies, of course. However, because your body's slowing down, it always can use a boost to know how to detoxify better, how to support your gut health, how to support your liver health, which is in my BioRevive system. That is why, again, the ones who in the BioRevive system, make sure you continue those good habits. I talk about where your liver health, where your gut health is so important. Okay. So you're so funny. Let's get plugged. Yeah. Like a Tesla, you plug it in and then they charge up. That's what I hope one day. Okay. That's going to be my superpower one day, everyone. So the next strategy after detoxification support is hormonal support. So this one is kind of like a controversial one. And what I'll say is I did a live on hormone replacement therapy. I am, like in that live, I talk about it is there's some reasons why you'll want to do hormone replacement therapy. And there's specific things like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and reasons why you want to consider it and reasons why you may want to not consider it. But in kind of as objective as possible, a lot of times if you struggle intensely, sometimes having some more natural like hormone kind of boosters, hormone replacement can help. But there's a lot of things you have to think about in that. So if you want actually that live, because that was last year I did this. Is it last year? Yeah, last year I did this hormone replacement therapy live. I'm 50-50. It's kind of one of those things is like, okay, if you're dying on the bed and you're having like some major thing, is it like, you're like, I'm not going to take any medication because I believe in natural and I'm just going to die. Well, that could be maybe your belief system. But like in general, like maybe it's like, if it's you really need it, then take the medication. If we can go a more natural route to balance your hormones or natural routes to create hormonal balance in your body, that would be nicer. but there is always pros and cons to both sides. So that's kind of my perspective on hormone support. But hormone support can also support inflammation response in your body. That's why I'm bringing it up. Okay. So let's look at this again. Okay. So the specific things that you can do to actually help yourself bring down inflammation is anti-inflammation nutrition, knowing your inflammatory markers, knowing how to read labels, supporting your gut health with prebiotics and probiotics, and learning more about your gut health. Number 3 is stress management, knowing how to manage stress, particularly mindset. Number 4 is knowing how to train with the menopausal training protocol, MTP. Number 5 is optimizing sleep. Number 6 is detoxification support, so understanding how to detoxify your body and liver health support. Number 7, hormonal support with potential hormone balancing things, natural adaptogens, or hormone replacement therapy. So which of the few do you feel like, if you listen to what I said, you're like, maybe I need to work more on this. Like I need to work more on sleep. Maybe I need to work more on menopausal training protocol. Maybe you need to work more on stress management. Put it below which one you feel you need. Okay. If you're like, okay, there's a lot of things I need to do to control inflammation. I understand inflammation more after this live, but you want to learn better how to heal your body, detoxify, heal your gut. I want you to put programs below because we have various programs that actually, work on inflammation and gut healing. And like I said, this is January, so this is the only month I allow 25% off all our coaching programs. So it's this month that you're going to get the 25% off. So I would suggest it's the time to do it now and start your 2025 year strong. Okay. Now, as you guys are coming in and like thinking about programs or gut healing programs and whatnot, as you come in, I see lots coming in and we will reach out to you. As you come in with this, I'm going to wrap up with diseases related to chronic inflammation. And it's just, that's the last part of the slide because I want you to remember, if you do not take care of it now, and then you choose to invest your money to go to Disneyland or invest your money to go buy 3 pairs of new shoes or invest your money to like, just people spend things on all sorts of crazy click things online. And I always say, well, you should invest into not getting sick and not getting these diseases in your body. Okay. I'm going to be quick with this. Diseases linked to chronic inflammation. Number 1, you're going to more likely have cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes is most common with inflammation. Number 2, you're going to potentially have diabetes. You're going to develop insulin resistance. And like I said, type 2 diabetes, where your pancreas and potential cells stop functioning with insulin. Number 3, you will experience obesity, and obesity creates a lot of extra fat tissues, which obviously creates more inflammation and heart failures. Okay, obesity. Number 4 is inflammation causes autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Hashimoto's, multiple sclerosis, as well as a lot of other diseases relating to organ and tissue damage. Number 5, if you don't control inflammation, you potentially can have neurodegenerative diseases. This is the really sad part because I know a lot of my clients' parents, mom and dad, go through this. And it's so important. If you don't control chronic inflammation in your brain, this will lead to Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and dementia. If you don't control inflammation, number 6 is you're more likely to get cancer. Persistent inflammation in your body damages DNA in your cells. This causes proliferation of damaged cells and mutations that will cause increased risk of cancer. Number 7 is inflammation is not controlled. You will have potential osteoarthritis in your bones and in kind of the tendons. Number 8, it will cause digestive disorders like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, and other gastrointestinal problems. Number 9, if you don't fix the inflammation in your body, you will have chronic kidney disease, potential kidney damage, and inability to filter out waste in your body. Number 10, respiratory diseases. So if you are, have inflammation, you might have asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. Your lungs will kind of stop functioning as well. And number 11, you will have potential skin disorders that will have psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, and other conditions affecting your skin. And number 12, if you don't control inflammation, it will lead to mental health disorders like depression, anxiety, and a whole host of other things. Okay. So I wanted to end with that because I believe that the root of your health and your long-term health and your long-term well-being for your family, for your kids, is to address inflammation. This is one of the most important things. Like I said, so if you want to address inflammation or learn about programs, put inflammation or program below. We are uptaking for FFF right away here. So FFF is our group coaching program. I believe we're going to start, I think with Oshone, we discussed it. We'll start end of January, beginning of February. So if you want to learn more about those programs, then put programs below. And I'll just wrap up with this, okay? Don't put off addressing inflammation in your body because this will be the life-changing factor. If I had to say across the board in all my programs, all my clients tell me what they love the most about my programs is definitely not my burpees. What they love the most about my programs is they learn about inflammation. And they're like, that is the most eye-opening thing I have ever learned in my life. It changes your life, is the inflammation control. So health is wealth. Invest in yourself. Make 2025 your year. And like I said, if you don't have my Fierce Woman workbook, which is free, drop gift below and we will send that to you. Okay. So that's a wrap. Hopefully you guys learned a lot and I will see you next week on the next section of the Fierce Women Workbook. And if you like this, hit the love button, tag someone on it, tell someone about it because it helps us grow as well. And I appreciate that. So sending you all lots of love and thank you so much everyone for joining me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.